I'm ready.
Start, Jesper.
Hello guys, welcome to today's webinar, which will be about the 3 spotlights, what you see just here in front of me. I'm Jesper, I'm working with Astera. Maybe you have met me before, but anyhow, it will take maximum 60 minutes, maybe a little bit less, depending. So if you do have any questions during the webinar, please just ask them in the chat. I will have some colleagues waiting for all the questions you might have during the webinar. Some of you out there might know the spotlights already, so some of the things what we are going through you might know. Some things will probably or hopefully also be new knowledge for you. As I said, we will talk about the 3 spotlights here, and we will go into details, also some specifications and stuff like that. So just let's get started. I want to start with the IP65, some might say IP65, which actually some will say it's waterproof. Let me define it or describe it a little bit more in details. You have the IP, the 6 is the dust proof. So that means actually the lights are maintenance free on the dust part, and the 5 is for the water. So when you have an IP65 light, you might think it's rainproof. It basically means that it's water hose proof, has been sprayed with a water hose for approximately 5 minutes, and then you can call it IP65 is no water is coming in that way. However, we have actually been making our own rain cage just to be sure that the lights also can stand the rain, just to be 100% sure. So this is tested. You can freely use it outside. And I also believe that one of you who has Astera lights have been using the lights outside already, also in rainy days. A little thing, I just want to tell you briefly about it. You see here the limitations. We have something called breather installed in the light. So when turning on a light, it of course creates some heat. Standing it out in the rain will make it colder, which means that inside the light will actually be creating some sort of pressure or under pressure. So these breathers are installed to level out the pressure so it doesn't suck in water. Actually, all the lights have 2 breathers each. The little AX3 here has a breather actually I have 2 camera angles here today also, so you can follow what happens here. The little AX3 here, for instance, has a little hole under the leveling screw right here. There is a breather. And also when we have taken off the bracket, in one of the sides here, you will also have a breather. The reason for that is if you actually would like to put it down on the ground, you will of course see that when it's raining heavily, the water can raise a little bit. So this one under here would probably be covered by water. That's why we have the second one still be able to breathe and level out the pressure so it doesn't suck in any water. The same for the AX5 here. You actually have just down here in the bottom, I can try to show you on this camera here instead, like this. So you have the one right here. And here where you have the plugins, you actually have this one here, just in case when you put it down without the bracket, that you are safe and sound and it levels out the pressure. That's why you should for sure not submerge it in a pool, then it will suck in water no matter what. Submerging is a no-go. Good. When we take the little AX3 here, there is a thing we have also when you buy a light or rent a light, you will have this little rubber plug here actually with the set or with the lights. So to call this IP65, you would need to put in the plug here at the DC connector or DC plug. And now we can actually call it IP65. You see it sitting here. If it's not in, it's theoretically not IP65. With this one, you might like to know if you can wire it outside as well. The AX3 when wiring or hardwiring with power outside and it's raining, it's also not IP65, and I don't recommend to do this. Simply just plug in the little rubber plug here. Good. Going to the AX5, just as I showed you here, where we have the little breather also, you have the rubber caps. So as soon or as long as they are closed, it's IP65. These at all times would of course need to be closed. The thing is, these can also be hardwired with the power control here. And this is an IP65 cable. So that means in any case, you would actually be able to plug in the power and it would still be IP65 hardwired. So that you can do anytime and as much as you want. I will come to this a little bit later, but it also have the DMX input and output, and you will also be able to actually get some IP65 cables. Anyhow, I think a lot of people also uses the cables that are not IP65, but of course I recommend to use the IP65 ones just to be sure that no water is let in the light itself. Going to the AX10 also has breathers. You see a little, okay, like this, let me see, yeah. So here you have a breather. And also when we turn it just like this, wait a second. Oh, there, okay, perfect. So this is actually the only breather the AX10 has right here. Sorry for that. And also equipped with the power control in and output here. So this can also be hardwired outside without being worried at all when it starts to rain. Perfect. I'm sure all of you also know how to charge the Astera lights. Anyhow, there is some small tips and tricks and also what we recommend, especially when charging. In general, all the lights comes in charging cases at different sizes. Of course, the AX3 is usually 8 in a set. I also have a set down here. I will also show you that a little bit later. We do have separate chargers for everything, like the power control one, which charges the AX10, and also the AX5 by plugging it in. The AX5 is a bit special, also have some sort of a new charging system what we made. I will come to that also very, very soon. I'm sure when some of you guys have been renting or have some Asteras on stock, you will also see that all the sets has a lid. So when charging, I recommend always to have the lid open so it can get rid of the heat when the lights are charging. In that case, or in that situation, we also keep the battery safe and on a normal temperature when it's charging anyways. Actually, when you see here on the bigger spotlights, just to be sure that everything is actually charged properly, you will have the display here also showing when it's 100% charged. The same for the AX5 right here, also has the display on the back, just like that. Will also give you, or at least you can read it there, that it's 100% charged. The AX3 is a little bit different. It doesn't have a display as you see. If this is the first time you see the AX3, it's a very compact little light, has a button here on the side and also one in the bottom. These are actually the same and are doing exactly the same thing. When this is turned off and you charge it, it will indicate that it charges by blinking green. When it's done charging, it will simply not blink anymore. So this is the way the AX3 symbolizes or indicates that it's 100% charged. All the spotlights here together will charge from 0% to 100 in actually 5 hours. So it's the same for all the 3 spotlights right here. Very important always to check that after a gig that you actually charge the lights to 100%. That's also why I'm talking a little bit about how you could see it. Makes good sense for these lights, but maybe it could be a little bit tricky with the little one here. Good. There is, of course, some limitations. And when using the light, we recommend, or actually it's tested, to use it within 0 degrees and 45 degrees. I know some countries in the winter time also have -10, maybe even 15 degrees, maybe even higher. And also the hotter places will probably also go over the 45 degrees in the sun. When it comes under the 0 degrees or over, it can actually change the battery cells, which will also change the runtime, which means if you have it on full brightness, it will light for 5 hours. But if it goes under and the battery cells changes, you can actually maybe count on that it maybe runs for 4 hours instead of 5. So that's the thing that changes, and it's not that good for the battery. However, you are still able to use it in -10 degrees. I don't recommend it, and also not for a longer period, just so you know what can happen when you actually expose or let the lights out in -degrees or +degrees. So the cells also change in higher plus degrees, over 45 degrees, of course. When charging, it's also very important that the warehouse has a normal temperature. What is a normal temperature? I would say around about 15 to 20 degrees. Then you are safe and sound, and also know that the lights will charge properly. If it's too cold or too hot, it will simply just not charge, because they also actually have a temperature, they actually, what do you call the word? I just forgot it. Sorry, guys. They can read out the temperature, and when it gets under the limit or over the limit, it will simply just not charge, just to spare or save the battery. What I just said is also very important. Just after use, always make sure to charge it, and then you can store it on the shelf. The thing is, if you would come home from a gig and it has 10% left, batteries will always drain a little bit over the time. So if you would not use the lights for 3 months and you didn't charge it just directly after the gig or job, it will actually discharge a bit. Sooner or later, it will go into deep discharge, and then it will disable the battery, and you would need to change the battery. So just keep it in mind. After a gig, charge it full, then you can store it for 3 months maybe, and then you charge it once again. Good. One thing, of course, to see, also to make sure that they actually charge, is that we turn off the light here. We will see in the display is nothing. We are pretty sure that this is off, and the same goes for the AX5. Simply just look in the display and we will be knowing, is it off or on? Depending on the mode, what you also can set in the app and so on, it could also look like this is turned off, but some modes can do that the LEDs go out, and then it will actually still be on. One thing to test it could also be just pushing one time on the power button. If it doesn't react in the LED, it's for sure turned off. Just a little tip for you who might have some AX3s at home. Good. I do get a lot of questions regarding fixed installation. That's why I also bring the topic with me here today. Fixed installation, what you read here, batteries would die over time. Yes. The thing is, when you would, for instance, fixed install the AX5 here, and you would run it on full brightness, then the power supply or the LEDs would need so much power that the battery doesn't get enough power to charge. Meanwhile, that means again that it will slowly discharge, or actually go down in the percentage in the battery. Sooner or later, you will have a deep discharged battery. So I for sure don't recommend to fix install the lights. They are actually also not intended to fix install. However, if you would need it, there is some small tips and tricks. Actually had a webinar last week about this, a little bit more detailed, some settings you can do in the app. It's called the tips, tricks, and less well-known features of the Estera app, where I also talk a bit more detailed about fixed installation. If you are in doubt, maybe having an upcoming project, my email will be at the end of the presentation. please write me. I will also be able to give you some tips and tricks, especially if you want to install them for 2 months, want to use the light with the battery afterwards, then we, of course, need to take very good care of the battery. Yeah. Talking about the spotlights, maybe actually we want to talk about the runtime as well. Runtime, having also lights running on battery, is very essential. So some of you might know it in the app. We have the runtime where you can set it to maximum 20 hours or maximum. For all the lights on a white color, max brightness, they will run for 5 hours. Then you can also set it in the app if you need them to run for 8 hours. But let me take the little remote control here just as an example, as the first thing. This is a very basic thing, some standard static colors, and we have some effects just up here. This can be very, very nice just to give the customer. It's very easy, set a blue color, that's it. But if you would have lowered the brightness just because they wanted to run for 10 hours and they push on the maximum brightness here, this is actually not referring to dimming brightness or something like that. It's actually directly referring to the runtime. So the smallest sun right here means 12 hours runtime. The medium one means 8 hours runtime. And then you have the biggest sun right there. That's 5 hours runtime. So in case the customer really wants it to run for 12 hours, but thinks, oh, they're not too bright, then they think the brightness here, then they will run for 5 hours, and a couple of hours later, they will be very disappointed. So it's a good information regarding this little remote control here. The next thing is, when connected to the Astera box, I don't have the app mirrored here today because I also need you to see all things what is happening right here. But in the main menu, we have the minimum runtime. Maybe you can see it here, and we can actually adjust it. So when we go to max, you will also see a brightness change in the lights behind, and we can run it up in 20 hours again. Super simple, super easy. And when setting it to 20 hours, this is only valid when the lights have been 100% charged. A little tip or trick: when you, or if you come to a gig and you see, oopsie, I have only been charged them to 50%, or maybe have forgotten to charge them, you want them to run for 10 hours, then you would need to set the runtime in the app to 20 hours to make them run 10 hours. It's a little bit of calculation to make, can be a little bit difficult when you want to have 7 hours but have 35% left. I think you can do the calculation by yourself, but this is how it works, just so you know. Good. As Astera, we do have 3 control methods. Just want to go through them very fast. As I just had the little remote control in my hand, this is one of them. The static colors, effects, you can set the speed and also fade in, and you can also take off the fade. And of course, the run time. You can also use it for power on off. The second thing is the Estera app here with the Astera box. It's very special with the Astera box here. Let me try see if I can explain it here. You actually have a range of 300 meters from this one open range to the lights. What you see there is that we have wireless DMX as well. So they all have a chip inside, which actually allows them to receive, or actually, receive wireless DMX from Lumen Radio. Recommended the Nova TX2. But talking about the Astera box here. So in this half, right, let me try to do like this. Perfect. In the left side here, where you also have the power on off button, you have actually the app control. And the other side is with Lumen Radio. So this is 2 control methods in one transmitter. The way it works is that you plug in a little DMX converter, what we also have within the package here. Then you can control this with a lighting desk, wireless DMX, but you will still be able to actually monitor the battery state here in the app. This will at all times be active. So running the Astera box on a lighting desk, you will still be able to do DMX settings and monitor the battery state. This works very, very well. I think you also, when working with DMX and wireless DMX, you will also figure it out that this works actually pretty great. If you want to have, of course, not a more stable connection, but if it's bigger gigs, I would surely recommend the Lumen Radio Nova TX2 because it also has bigger antennas. So the transmission will be, of course, stronger than the ART7 here. I think it makes very good sense to all of you as well. Perfect. As I said, the Astera system is actually a system where all the controllers talk together. So as you see on the picture with the DMX console, the lighting desk will talk through the Astera box to the lights, but the Estera app will still be receiving live feedback on the battery state. So this is actually how it works. And I also talked about in the tips, tricks, and less well-known features of the Estera app about some input selects that you can set an input select of wireless DMX here, then you log it to one control method. That you can do, and there will also be a sheet in this presentation or webinar where you can see which input select and which source will work together whenever selecting one of these inputs. Perfect. Spotlights, of course, have a beam angle. Every light has. What is special, or not special, but common for all three lights, they all have a 13-degree angle. Maybe I can turn it up here a little bit, like that. 13 degrees, but we also do have filters included with the lights. So when we take the next slide, please. Just like that, perfect. I will come to the filters just in a moment. The AX3 here is actually equipped with a bracket, as you see here. And the bracket, of course, can be here, like with a spigot, and then mount a super clamp so you can mount it in the truss. Very easy, very simple. Taking it off one more again here. What you also have on the bracket is actually you have a little turning feet here, so you can use it as a stand. Simply just stand it here. If you want to stand it on the floor, lighting up against the wall, can also be. The little thing here, the little AX3, has also a magnet here on the backside. So whenever having a metal surface, you can certainly easily just mount it with the magnet. The magnet carries its own weight 30 times. Good to know. Don't be afraid that it falls down. However, I would secure it if you hang it over the head of people. The bracket can also be taken off. Then it looks like this. When you then stand it here in front of the wall, you maybe want to tilt it a bit so you also light on the wall. Then we have the little leveling screw right here, what I was talking about in the beginning. Simply just level it up like this and simply just stand it back on the floor like that. Exactly. So talking about the accessories, you probably already saw the AX3 here with the dome on. The dome just softens the light very, very good. And I think for the dome, you will be able to use it as table decorations. It can be that you want it to look like a shiny star heaven whatsoever. But this can also be taken off. I don't know if you see it very well here in the camera. Maybe let me try throw down the brightness a little bit. You see the colors here in the dome are pretty even overall. It's actually because I have a 120-degree filter, symbolized here with the 3 holes inside here. So when this is not in, like you see here, you will also have a different focus here in the dome. So depending on how much you want to soften it out, maybe you want to soften it very much or maybe just a bit, then you simply just put on the dome for itself. I have all the filters right here. A 30-degree filter is included, like that. And then we, okay, just do like this maybe. Then we already have, I don't know if you see it very well here. I think it's pretty okay, just like that. And it's actually just where you put the filter in here, take it out. And I don't know if you see it, just so it's locked when hanging it. You have, okay, maybe you don't see it so good, like here, but you will be able to lock it, especially when hanging it, just like this. We do have a 120-degree filter here as well. That's the one with the 3 holes. Just like that. It softens and, of course, spreads the angle very, very much, 120 degrees. And we do have one with 4 holes. This is not included when you rent or buy a light, but simply when we put it on here, I don't know if you will see it. Maybe I change the color fast. Wait a second. Like that, like that, like that. So maybe the green here. We have a table right here. Then we will be able to hit the table just like that without having any spill light outside the table areas. Good. Going to the next one. I talked a little bit about the charging case already, and I also have it right here, just in case you haven't seen it yet. It's actually a case just like this. When we open it, we will have space for 8 AX3s right here. As I said, the 30-degree filter and the 120-degree filter is within in small bags like this, and also small accessory bags with the rubber plugs right here. The way the case works, maybe you can't see it from there. I'll try carry it all the way over here. Like that. You have the small DC pins right there. Simply just place the AX3 right. That's not very hard. And then you will actually have it charging all 8 at the same time. Just put it down just like that. That's it. And then we plug in the AC connector over here. The reason why it's inside the case is so you don't close the lid, also what I talked about earlier. Perfect. Let me just put down the case here once again. We will move on to the AX5. Good. As you see here, the AX5 is a pretty flexible spotlight with a weight of 3.5 kilograms. You have the bracket right here, also with the possibility to mount the speaker, and then with a super clamp to mount it in a truss. You also, on this bracket here, has the foldable feet. Simply just fold them out and stand them up against the wall, and you also can angle it pretty easy, just like this. Another feature here on the AX5 is, I don't know if you see it very well, you have 2 pins you can push in here, and then easy and fast remove the bracket just like that. Now it actually becomes an uplight. So if you have a wide wall, just standing it like this, but again, you maybe want to tilt it a bit, then we have the little kickstand down here in the bottom. We have a little button. When we push it, it will kick out this one. And now we will be able to actually level it and angle it up against the wall, simply just like that. Perfect. This one has a RGB amber white, so 5 colors, and that makes it reach 92 in CRI. So you have a very nice, smooth white color. Also, when using a camera on stage, then the CRI is actually pretty good in this one. It has 3 LEDs, so 45 watts in total. The X5 is a little bit special. We have actually a lot of accessories for this one. The first one we see is the dome working just the same as on the little AX3. The thing is, we have a filter here, which is also replaceable. We have 2 different ones. When having this one, you will see it evens out. Maybe I turn down the brightness a bit. Just have to think about the camera, just like that. Then you will see here that the color here is very even all over the dome. When you want to not have the dome or the light softened out that much, you simply just take the little filter off right here. Simply, yeah, good, like that. And then we have the other filter here. These filters are, of course, in the little dome package here. Boom. Okay, so it's this way, perfect. When placing the filter here and the dome on top, you will also be able here to see, like this. I don't know if you see it so good, but the focus is more up here in the top instead of the whole dome is not very even as it was before. So this can also make the light very soft, but still. Also very good for table decorations or other stuff. I think your imagination in this case can be a little bit better than mine. Also filters, the flood filter right here. And when we do the brightness a little bit more up, just like that, you see the 13 degree here. And once we take on here the 32 degrees, of course, the beam angle will be wider. We also do have a wall wash filter for the X5, like this, looking like this when turning the light. Since we maybe don't want to turn the light to have a line up against the wall, or we want to wash the wall, then we have this rotatable filter right here. Standing the light and simply just rotate the filter so you don't have to move the light, which I think is a lot more practical. Yeah, just like that. Perfect. When, for instance, having the AX5 without the bracket, want to make it look nice, can be a wedding, can be a bigger event where you have them standing up against a white wall. This is, of course, back, so the contrast is maybe a little bit weird. Then we do have something called a volcano cover. This comes in white. Simply just put it over like this, and you have a nice white surface over the light. Just hitting it a little bit away. The other thing what we can do in this case, we have something called flex covers. So let's start with the white one. Like that. Perfect. The flex cover, super easy, comes in a little bag of 8 pieces. Doing like this. Fast and easy. You also have it matching the white wall and looks nice. Very fast, very easy. If you want it to more blend into its surroundings, you would probably use this mirror flex cover instead. Turn it around here, like that. And we have it blending in. That's 3 ways of doing this kind of decoration stuff. Good. When we move on to the next slide, I told you also a little bit about the X5 charging. Of course, you can always plug in the power con here and it will charge. However, we did make, let me just turn down the brightness. So you see, we have these 2 points here in the front, which makes it super easy to charge. I brought a charging plate with me, just to give you the real point of view. This is a charging plate for 4 AX5s. It also comes for 8 lights. So what you want to do is actually plug in the power control one here. And then you simply, just after a job in the case, put down the light like this. Doesn't matter how it turns, then it will charge. So this is pretty easy. Also something that actually only are existing on the AX5 light here. This little plate, you can of course build your own case for it, also for the one with 8 pieces, but the 4-plate one, I don't know if you have seen something like this, if it's standard where you come from, but it will fit down in a case like this for 4 pieces. If you don't have more to take with every time, maybe you have gigs where you often can be used for a little front lighting as well as decoration lighting. In Europe here, we do have a cooperation with Amptown where we also get some cases from, but you can surely also build your own. The charging plates can also be bought individually. Perfect. Going to the AX10, the most powerful spotlight what we have, has 9 LEDs here inside of 15 watts. So we have a total amount of 135 watts. Has the same LEDs as the AX5, so it's RGB, amber, and white. Also makes it possible for us to reach a CRI of 92 in the white color, so also looks pretty good in a camera. Has a total lumen of 3,350, so it's quite powerful. Can be used for facade lighting or maybe front lighting as well, because the white color is actually pretty good and has an amber, so you also can fit the color there. I'm also sure your imagination is way better than mine in this case, so you would probably understand and know where you would like to use a spotlight like this. Mounting the AX10 is a little bit similar to the AX5. We do have the bracket here with the foldable feet, so you also can stand it on the floor. And with this speak out, also the same concept with the super clamp mounting it in the truss. The bracket is not so easy to take off as the AX5. That's something a little bit newer, because actually the AX10 is from 2014 and the AX5 here is from late 2016. Yes. So there's a bit of difference here. Good. Moving on, the AX10 don't have so many different accessories as the AX5. It's also bigger, so there's also different usage purposes. We do have a 32-degree filter, just like the AX5. I think you get the point. I don't have to show it right here. And also the wall wash filter, where you can wash the wall or make a stripe up against the wall. The same concept we made here with the rotatable filter, so you don't have to turn the light every time and make it look bad. Then you have the rotatable filter just to actually adjust the angle of the wall wash here. Charging the AX10, just like that. So Michael, if we take the next slide, please. Would be nice. Perfect. This is an idea of a case with 8 AX10s inside. The way to charge, and the only way to do it, is taking the power con cable right here. Simply just plug it in, and then it charges. We don't have a charging case solution for this, so you are more than welcome just to build your own 4 pieces, 8 pieces, 6 pieces, and then simply just have some power inside, fast to plug in the power cons into the power socket, and then they are charging overnight. Good. Coming to one of the last points here is the true color calibration, what we call it. So our factory is in China, and we own the factory, so we can actually control the quality from the very beginning to the very end. Only Astera products are built and produced in this factory in China. So when the lights have been produced or are done in the production line, we have a calibration machine where all and each one of the lights come down to, so we calibrate after our Astera RGB color space. This means when you have an old light, let's say from 2015, an AX3, and then you buy, let's say, an AX5 in 2020, the colors will stay the same. So if you have, for instance, a Congo blue, often used, then the blue and the Congo blue on the AX3 and the AX5 will be the same. Of course, LEDs can be out of calibration. That's why we are also able to recalibrate the colors actually. A little bit info for the ones of you who are operating a lot with wireless DMX and on lighting desks with Astera lights. When choosing a DMX profile with RGB, you have, of course, the calibration when having a profile with RGB without amber and white, of course. Because having the RGB will also allow you to type in the exact RGB values, and then it will match the exact same color. If you would choose a profile with RGB amber white, then the calibration is no longer there. That means that you would have to correct all the faders and stuff to hit the exact color, but we also know that that can be very hard without calibration and RGB values. Perfect. Good. Let's go to the last page where we actually end all this now. It was round about 40 minutes, so not quite 1 hour, but I think we will live after all. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope I could learn you a little bit new, even though some of you might have been knowing some of the spotlights even before we started this webinar. The webinar is being recorded, so if there's something you want to check afterwards, it will probably upload it tomorrow, latest Tuesday, because of Easter now. Exactly, Easter is just around the corner. And if you did or do have some questions after the webinar, you are more than welcome just to write me an email, also standing here in the presentation. Good. I would also recommend you guys, or I want to suggest, we do have a Facebook group called Astera Users Group Official, where all us from Astera and a lot of Astera users are in. If they have questions, they ask, and we simply ask or answer the question. And everyone is actually helping out and doing stuff for each other. It's a great community, and I would highly recommend to join this community on Facebook. Guys, thank you for watching and listening to me. Stay healthy, stay safe out there, and happy Easter.